What is a family? Who is your family?
What if I told you that there's more to it? That there are benefits and resources from heaven that are available to help you in this life, and you've never heard about them? Are you curious? Well, join Gordon Merrill as he digs deeper into making heaven real in this life.
Welcome back to Making Heaven Real. Question at the top of the show is, what is a family? At first glance, you might go, well, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? But maybe not so much. Let's kind of take a look at it. Obviously, there are those genetic people that are family unit, normally made up of father and mother, brother and sister, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas. But what about adopted family? What about chosen family? My personal family, I have an adopted son. Is it legal? Yes. But at the same time, I have 3 adopted sisters. Are they legally adopted? No. But does that make a difference in how we handle things? No. I think one of the things that was most interesting was shortly after my wife passed, there was a question that was raised about, her kids, my kids, all of that, and how many of them did she consider to be her own. And she very emphatically made it very well known that all 5 were her kids. Technically, 2 of them were born to her before I knew her. 3 of them were mine before I knew her. And one of those 3 was adopted. But as far as we were concerned in the family, it made absolutely no difference. We had 5 kids. They were all loved, adored, and all very much equally a part of our family. So when we're looking at the family side of things, there's some other things that you want to look at. Some people have long-term friends who have been a part of their life for years, who are considered to be as much a part of their family as, in some cases, even more so than genetic family members. I remember watching a show on TV not too long ago, and I don't remember exactly where it was or what show it was, but it was a situation where they had planned this huge family Christmas. And one by one, slowly but surely, this one couldn't come for this reason, this one couldn't come for this reason, this one couldn't come for another reason, this one was snowed in and couldn't make the flight. And it finally just came down to, sorry, this didn't turn out the way we had planned for it. And I remember the person saying, well, we'll just have Christmas with the family that chooses to be family this year. Without looking at this from the Christmas side of things, how many of us have family that just chooses to show up? May not be genetic, may not be adopted, but they are chosen family members. John Sandel writes in his book, "It is the intimate companionship with other people that we become human, or at least what God means by human." Let's expand on that a little bit more. In that intimate companionship is what our soul needs to learn about companionship and relationships while in his human form. We've talked before about how each of us is a spirit from heaven that was put in this human body in order to be here and learn certain things that you really can't learn in heaven. And a lot of that comes down to interpersonal relationships, relationships with people, companionships, and how humans work together. So if we're here at God's behest to learn what it means to be human with intimate companionship, that may not be genetic family only. Last week we talked about the holiday season and how that is especially difficult for people who have lost a very significant loved one, who may be very fresh with that loss and very much overcome by the grief of that loss. So we discussed a toolkit that you could use. 3 simple things that you could use to help someone in grief. Typically, people who don't really understand how to help somebody in grief tend to run and hide in order to not make it worse or to not cause a problem, or not, in some cases, to let them know that you have no idea what to do. So the toolkit basically just gave us 3 simple things that we could use to help someone in grief. And when we discussed it last week, we said, well, you may not have somebody close to you who just recently passed, but you probably know someone who has. While they may not be genetic family or adopted family, they could very well be chosen family. Touched on it briefly last week, but what we were talking about there too is how someone in the depth of grief, having the metabolic, absolute physical changes that happen to your body through the trauma of grief, there's a period of time there where you're not real sure what all's happening to you. And you're not real sure where you stand. And for a couple of days, you may not even remember what happened the day before due to the trauma of grief. You know, we don't really run and hide if a family member falls and has a traumatic brain injury. We don't run and hide if they have a heart attack. We don't run and hide if they have a stroke. So why do we run and hide if they have a loss and are experiencing grief? I distinctly remember talking to my grief counselor a couple times and going, you know, there's 2 examples that come to mind on how I feel right now. One is, you know, the book and the movie about the Scarlet Letter. And the other is about the Bible, where people who were stricken with leprosy had to run through town and holler unclean to keep people away from them. And it's bad when you're going through grief if that is the way you feel and that is what you think people are thinking of you. That's where it comes back to the grief toolkit. That's where it comes back to just spending time, being available, and listening. Just think of the impact you can have on just the friends and family you know who are currently experiencing grief. If all you did was deploy that toolkit for just those people you know. When everybody else is running away because they, as we talked in week 1, don't know what they don't know, and they probably don't know what they don't know about grief because nobody's ever taught them, because as we talked about, society as a whole has no idea how to handle grief. So if you were just to employ what we discussed on the toolkit last week with just the people you know, just think how much of an impact you would have in their life. It's really simple. 3 simple things that should be pretty easy for any of us to do for anybody, family or not. You just love them as Christ loves anybody. You listen to them without expecting anything, without sitting there listening, trying to figure out what the next thing is you're going to say, because for the most part, you may not need to say anything. But most of all, you linger. And you let them take comfort in the fact that they know you are there. Especially when you end up having lost a spouse that you were so very close to for so long. You end up coming back to an empty house. Nobody there. Nobody to support you. Nobody to confide in. And as I said at the very first, you're not real sure of your own mental status. Everywhere you look around that house are absolute wonderful memories of you and the spouse. But yet those very same memories are open wounds that just rip your heart out, because it reminds you that that person was just ripped away from you. How grounding is it then if you have a close friend to be your family, an anchor for you to hold on to while you're pushing your way through this uncertain time? So, a lot of that we discussed last week as well, so we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that this week. This week we're kind of refocusing a little bit on after we have taken the time to use a grief toolkit for those who are grieving around us, after we have taken the time to help them through this difficult time. Then it becomes a new year. Time to focus on, well, refocus on anything and everything. I think the one thing I kind of hated about grief counseling was the first thing that they were wanting to do is teach you to reinvent yourself. Nothing as you know is going to be the same. Everything about you is changing. So how are you going to reinvent yourself? First thing out of my mouth is, what's wrong with me as I am? I was this perfectly wonderful person for X number of years. Yes, I know my significant other is gone. And yes, this person that was literally half of me is no longer there. But I'm still me. My career is still here. I still have the relationships I had before. Hopefully I still have friends that haven't run for cover because my spouse was taken from me. So why do I need to completely reinvent myself? Why would I want to consider even starting a whole new life? Well, granted, things will never be the same because I still, almost 2 years later, find myself, when something happens that's remarkable or interesting, I find myself turning and wanting to talk to her and say, hey, oh, yeah. But, as I'll tell you a little bit later in the episode today, you don't have to quit doing that. I might turn around to see her and I don't see her, but she's still there. And I can still tell her all about it. So no, things will never be the same. And you'll be making major changes in your life. Sometimes they want you to hurry up and start dating, get back out there, get back on the horse, as they say. All those cliche comments. But are you ready? I think one of the biggest concerns is being pushed into doing something before you're ready for it. Feeling like somebody's pushing you to move into this new space that you're not ready for. I know in my case, it hasn't even been 2 years since I lost the love of my life. I'm not ready to start dating. I'm not ready to jump out there and jump into something else. Because most of the time, the meaning behind that, when they're pushing you to start doing something else or start dating someone else, we're back to our discussion last week about how to handle somebody and deal with somebody in grief. You need to listen and not tell them what to do. In a lot of cases, I think if people were listening to the person in grief, they wouldn't tell them to start dating, because there's nothing about what that person would be telling them that indicates they're ready. Another phrase you hear a lot is, well, you need to move on from your spouse. Come up with other relationships and other people to confide in. And what we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks, my big question to that is, why? Number one, our previous relationships have helped shape us and mold us and make us into who we are now. And all of those are lessons that our spirit needed to learn on this life's plan for this particular time that we're here, or it would not have happened. We don't pull away from someone and not date them if they have just been divorced from a previous spouse. We don't make them forget their ex. You just have to get over that. And it's an ex, so, get rid of everything. All of your memories, just get rid of all of that. No. So why should we even consider making someone forget a late spouse who integrated with them, who became a major part of their life and their existence? But more importantly, they helped shape who they are. And why would we make them forget them? Especially since we know that person is always going to be with them. Do we need to forget your spouse? No. They will never forget you. They will never leave you. They are part of the heavenly equity that's available to you. They, if we are open and listen, will be there to lead us, to help us, to talk to us. So rather than jump right into the idea that, oh, I just lost my spouse, oh, counseling tells me I need to move on and do something else, let's refocus a little bit. At least for the first part of this next new year. Let's call on your heavenly equity to help you. And we haven't got into a whole lot of detail of everything that makes up your heavenly equity. We've talked about it just in passing, and it's definitely going to be an upcoming episode. Well, let me just tell you this. First of all, your spouse is right there. Front and center, close, looking over everything that's going on, probably standing right behind you if they aren't right behind you and got their arms wrapped tightly around you. They are there. Followed by other close family. Followed by your guardian angel, an archangel, an ascended elder, other chief principal people who are part of your spirit council and your spirit group. You have all of these people here ready and willing to help you. So let them help you, guide you, manage you, and speak to you. Now, one of the things I mentioned over the last 2 or 3 weeks, actually, is letting your spirit team manage you. I've already gotten questions about that, so let me dump into that a little bit more in the time we have left here. But there's several things that I think are very interesting. When we go back to Scripture, the Bible tells us that our Creator does not want us to think about or worry about anything. Matthew is kind of big on this with take no thought about what you eat, drink, or put on your body. Because Creator God knows you need all of these things. And take no thought for tomorrow, because tomorrow shall take thought of the things of itself. In other words, leave it all to heaven. Or leave it all to your heavenly equity. Now you say, okay, that sounds great. In the Bible, in Scripture, in theory, in church, but is that really reality? Well, let me tell you, I've learned the hard way over the last year. Yes, it is. A couple key points about that before we get into this too far. And a lot of this will probably end up rolling over into another episode. But God wants to do everything for you. That's why he says not to worry, because you leave it to him to handle it. You leave it to your heavenly team to handle it. All you need to know is what you need to do for today. One of the big examples I've heard not too long ago is don't worry about what's 6 weeks out, because if you're letting God and heavenly equity team handle and manage it for you, what you may see as an obstacle 6 weeks out may be gone by the time you get to that 6th week, because they're managing it for you. I will give you an example, another personal example. I hate to do this, but I will give you another personal example just for today. I got up this morning earlier than I normally do. I had this need to get out of bed and go, which I did. And come to find out, there was like 5 or 6 things that I was wanting to get done today, and every one of them was put in place for me in succession, in order, and handled quickly. No problems, no concerns, no traffic tie-ups, no problems in the line, nothing. Everything was handled in such a organized fashion. It happened quickly, It happened efficiently. Everything was handled completely. It was not what I had planned for the day. Even though you have no thought for tomorrow and you don't plan ahead and you try and leave everything to your heavenly equity team, we're still human. And a part of that human process is, okay, well, let me look at the schedule. Let's see, well, tomorrow I really need to do that. And then you go to bed and you say, okay, heavenly team, I'm going to leave this with you and we'll see what we do in the morning. But if you do leave it with your heavenly team, and you do rely on heavenly equity to lead you through the day, you'll be surprised how wonderfully it works. You'll be surprised how everything falls together and how you'll be led from, well, no, let's don't go here, let's go here instead. And when you do, everything works together so much better, faster, and efficiently when you let them lead your day. We talked earlier in a previous episode about how the only way we can limit God in heaven is injecting our free will. Your biggest struggle needs to be for the next year to focus your free will in the right direction. If you allow your heavenly equity team to take charge of your free will and keep you on target, you'll be surprised how this works. Now again, what I'm about to mention here in the next couple minutes is subject matter for another 5 or 6 episodes, but we know a spirit from heaven has been sent to earth and put in a human form, and that's you. We know you were sent here with a life's plan of things that you needed to learn in this lifetime. And that life's plan was derived from an overall plan that your spirit in heaven has in front of it, that it is charted to learn. So your life's plan is a subset of that charted plan for your spirit. You're here in order to complete that plan. What better way to organize and handle things in your life than to ask your spirit team, your heavenly equity team, to manage that plan for you, effectively giving them charge of your free will so that they can lead you and guide you and organize you to effectively cover everything that you need to cover and handle in your life's plan. So, if it was always heaven's plan for all humans, the spirits that are here to learn, to rest and rely completely on heaven to handle everything for them, do you think they're a little bored because we've been taking the reins for so long and doing everything that we're really supposed to let them do for us? Again, that's another episode, but I will say this. The answer to that is no. They may not be able to do as much as they would like to do because we haven't given them permission on some of the things that they need permission for, but I can tell you they're there. They're watching, they're looking out for you, they're doing everything they can to help you with what they're allowed to. So why not give them full control? Imagine how your new year will change if you allow heaven to take charge and plan, organize, and control your life for you. Where will you be next year after a full year of making heaven real in your life?
What if I told you that there's more to it? That there are benefits and resources from heaven that are available to help you in this life, and you've never heard about them. Are you curious? Well, join Gordon Merrill as he digs deeper into making heaven real in this life.